He didn't lose money slowly. He lost it instantly. 1 second. Everything looked normal. Next second. He couldn't sell. The app didn't crash. The internet was fine. The system just stopped. And he wasn't alone. Thousands of people, all trying to do the same thing. Get out. But the exit was gone. Prices kept moving. Money kept disappearing. And nobody could do anything. By the time it came back, it was already over. So, how does something like this even happen? It doesn't start with a crash. It starts with trust. April 2021. Hundreds of thousands of people opened a crypto app to check their money. Instead of charts, balances, and buttons, they got a message. Trading has been paused. That sounds small, harmless even. Like a grocery store saying, back in 10 minutes. But this was not a coffee break. Within hours, users couldn't withdraw. The platform went dark. The founder was gone. And what looked like a fast-growing crypto success story suddenly started smelling like one of the biggest digital scandals Turkey had ever seen. This is the story of Thodex, the story of a young founder, a hopeful public, a platform worker watching the machine strain from the inside, and an investigator trying to piece together what was left after trust turned to smoke. To understand how this happened, forget crypto for a second. Imagine a giant arcade. You walk in with real cash. You hand it to the front desk. They give you shiny plastic tokens. The machines are flashing, the crowd is cheering. One guy says he doubled his tokens last week. Another says this place is the future. A third says you're already late. Pretty soon, you stop asking whether the tokens are real. You start asking why everyone else seems to be getting rich faster than you. That was the moment Turkey was in. Its currency was shaky, inflation was biting. Saving money felt like trying to carry water in your hands. Ordinary people weren't looking for excitement. They were looking for escape, a shortcut, a lifeboat. Something bigger than their local economy, something modern, something global, something that felt like a way out. Then crypto arrived, not as code first, as hope. Bitcoin was rising. Stories of overnight wealth were everywhere.
Look at these profits.
Wow, that's great.
It's really growing.
Amazing.
Teenagers were talking about coins. Taxi drivers were talking about coins. People who had never bought a stock in their lives were suddenly discussing digital wallets over dinner. And into that chaos stepped the founder, young, polished, ambitious, calm in the way people often mistake for competence. He didn't invent cryptocurrency. He didn't need to. He just showed up at the perfect moment with the perfect pitch. A clean brand, a smooth app, loud campaigns, big promises, a platform called Thodex. At first, it looked like a normal startup story, a hungry founder, a fast-growing business, a platform that understood exactly what the public wanted. That's the first trick in almost every big scam. It doesn't look like a scam in the beginning. It looks like momentum. Think about how trust works online. You never touch the company. You don't shake the CEO's hand. You don't walk into a vault and count the money. You look for signals, a polished website, a slick app, big promotions, headlines, growth. Thodex had all of that. It marketed aggressively, it made noise, it dangled campaigns that grabbed attention. The message was simple: don't miss this. Don't be the idiot who laughed at the internet, laughed at Bitcoin, laughed at every new thing, and then spent the next 10 years regretting it. And people listened. Because hype is powerful, but hype mixed with financial pain, that's rocket fuel. When people feel left behind, they stop asking, is this safe? They start asking, what if this is my only chance? That's where the average investor comes in. He's not a hedge fund guy. He's not some genius trader with 6 monitors and a Bloomberg terminal. He's just a normal person staring at a phone, hoping this is finally his turn. A little savings, maybe rent money, maybe emergency cash. Maybe the first real shot at getting ahead. To him, the app doesn't feel like a casino. It feels like a lifeboat. And that emotional detail matters because stories like this are never really about charts. They're about desperation wearing the clothes of optimism. But every lifeboat has a crew. Inside the platform, someone else is seeing this from the other side of the glass. The platform worker. He sees the dashboards, the transaction flows, the approvals, the queues, the warnings, the weird delays no user can see. To the public, a crypto exchange is supposed to be boring. Deposit money, buy coins, sell coins, withdraw. It should work like a vending machine for digital assets. Put money in, get assets out. Simple. But from the inside, systems like this are never simple. They are wallets, ledgers, permissions, pipes, reconciliations, and pressure. And pressure was building. Because here is the dirty secret behind a lot of financial fraud. It doesn't collapse when it starts. It collapses when too many people ask for their money at the same time. As long as deposits keep coming in, weak controls can survive. Messy records can survive. Bad separation of customer funds can survive. A founder using trust like a credit card can survive. Because in a boom, nobody checks the plumbing. They just admire the water pressure. And by 2021, the pressure was enormous. Thodex reportedly had hundreds of thousands of users. The founder was becoming a public figure. The platform looked unstoppable, which made the whole thing feel safer, not riskier. That's another trick big scams use. They do not look criminal. They look successful. They smile for photos. They talk about innovation, access, freedom, community. They dress the lie in the language of the future. And once the crowd starts repeating that language for them, the story begins defending itself. Ask too many questions and you sound jealous, cautious, weak, old-fashioned. That is how dangerous stories survive. Then came April 2021. Users logged in, tapped, waited, refreshed, nothing. The average investor looked at the same app, the same account, the same screen, but now the screen felt different. It felt like glass on the outside of a locked building. He could still see his money, but he couldn't reach it. And inside the company, the platform worker was seeing something worse. This wasn't a slow app. This wasn't routine maintenance. This wasn't one broken button. The system was seizing up. Orders weren't moving, withdrawals weren't clearing. The gap between what users believed existed and what the platform could actually deliver was becoming impossible to hide. Then came the soft language maintenance, partnership talks, temporary pause, technical issue. The usual corporate words people use when they want panic to arrive 5 minutes later than it otherwise would. But panic arrived anyway, because one rumor changed everything. The founder had left the country. Now imagine being a customer in that moment. Your money is inside a black box. The door is locked. The man holding the keys is on a plane, and the company that sold you the future suddenly can't explain the present. That is the exact second trust flips. 1 second it's an asset, the next second it's gasoline. What followed looked less like a startup problem and more like a digital bank run. Angry users flooded social media. Offices were raided, employees were detained, headlines multiplied by the hour. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, another character entered, the investigator. Not a movie detective chasing cigarette smoke down an alley, a financial investigator chasing records, transactions, devices, statements, timelines. He wasn't looking for drama. He was looking for sequence. Who moved what, when, why. And whether the money people thought was there had ever really existed in the way they imagined. Because money has a strange property. It can exist in two places at once in people's heads, but not in reality. The customer thinks, that's my money. The company thinks, that's money under management. A reckless founder might think, that's money I can use for now. 3 meanings, 1 disaster. Reports tied the missing funds to massive losses, with estimates reaching into the billions. The exact number became a fight. But emotionally, the math was already done. For ordinary users, this wasn't abstract market volatility. This was savings, rent, emergency cash, hope. And that's what makes stories like this feel so brutal. Some of these people had gone into crypto because they no longer trusted the local financial system. They ran from one shaky structure and ended up trusting something even less solid. That's the cruel joke at the center of so many modern scams. People run from one burning building and accidentally sprint into one made of paper. The founder denied fraud. That happens a lot. Scandals almost never announce themselves honestly. Nobody walks to a microphone and says, "Good afternoon. We built a giant lie." Instead, you get explanations, delays, blame, partnership stories, cyber attack stories, misunderstandings, words used like sandbags against a flood. Sometimes they slow the water. They never stop it. Eventually, the chase spread across borders, warrants, international headlines, extradition, courtrooms. The glamorous startup image was gone. In its place was something much uglier, a business that, according to prosecutors, had lured customers in and trapped them when it mattered most. And that brings us to the part that really matters. Scams like this do not survive on technology. They survive on emotion. Greed gets all the attention, but greed is only half the engine. The other half is fear. Fear of missing out, fear of staying poor, fear of watching everyone else get rich while you play it safe. That fear makes people move fast. And when people move fast with money, they stop checking whether the floor is real. The founder understood that. The average investor felt that. The platform worker saw what that pressure did to the machine. And the investigator arrived only after the pressure had already blown the doors open. Years later, Turkish courts handed down extraordinary prison sentences in connection with the case. The legal system came down hard, but punishment after the fact doesn't rewind anything. It doesn't restore lost sleep. It doesn't erase humiliation. It doesn't magically rebuild trust in people who already felt betrayed by money once before. That damage lingers, because every giant scam teaches the same lesson in a slightly different costume.
Let's innovate and grow, building the future together. With our vision, we can turn it into reality.
First, create belief, then create urgency, then grow faster than scrutiny, then wait. Because the final test always comes. not when deposits are flowing in, not when the market is going up, not when the founder is smiling for cameras. The final test comes when people want out. That is the moment every fraudulent machine eventually meets. The moment when the average investor stops being a believer and becomes a customer asking for his money back. The moment when the platform worker can no longer hide system strain behind technical language. The moment when the investigator starts asking questions the story cannot survive. The moment when the founder discovers whether he built a fortress or a cardboard set. And in this story, the set collapsed, not with shattered glass, not with masked robbers, not with a midnight vault explosion, just an app, a loading screen, a pause message, a plane ticket, and hundreds of thousands of people learning the oldest lesson in finance all over again. If you cannot see where your money really is, you are not investing. You are trusting. And trust handed to the wrong person can become the most expensive asset on earth. But here's the darkest part. The biggest scams don't steal money first. They steal certainty. They steal the little sentence people say to themselves before they sleep. I'll be okay. The average investor lost cash, yes, but he also lost confidence. Confidence in the screen, confidence in the system, confidence in his own judgment. The platform worker learned that sometimes a company can look modern on the outside and still be rotting underneath. The investigator learned what investigators always learn too late. By the time the paper trail is visible, the emotional damage is already done. And the founder? Whether you call him reckless, criminal, opportunistic, or all three, he proved one thing beyond any doubt. If you understand people's fear well enough, you can build something enormous out of almost nothing for a while. And that is why stories like Thodex matter. Not because crypto is uniquely evil, not because technology is uniquely dangerous, but because every era invents a new machine for an old weakness, a new interface, a new slogan, a new promise that this time, getting rich will be simple. It never is. If you want more stories like this, the scams, crashes, power plays, and financial disasters that change the world, subscribe because the next one is just as unbelievable. And if there's another collapse, scam, or company you want broken down like this, drop it in the comments because the next crisis always looks harmless. Right until it doesn't.